Discover 3 spine-chilling true camping horrors that reveal sinister secrets of the haunted woods. The woods at Pine Creek National Park seemed to breathe with life as Mark, Lisa, Jake, and Emma stepped into the wild. Shadows danced among the trees, whispers of caution carried in the chill air. They barely noticed the tightening in their chests as they set up camp, a nervous energy swirling among them, a family once vibrant, now frayed at the edges. The dark secrets hidden in this lush landscape loomed like the dense canopy above, threatening to reveal nightmares rather than the peaceful retreat they sought. As twilight crept in, the vibrant sunset cast eerie silhouettes against the trees. An unsettling crackle from their campfire masked the faint rustle of branches, like collective breaths of the forest itself. "Did you hear that?" Emma whispered, her wide eyes darting into the tree line. Lisa's heart raced as she recalled her grandmother's old tales, a spirit wronged by families who disrespected the land, lurking just out of sight. Mark chuckled, trying to ease the tension. "Just the wind, honey," he reassured her, though unease washed over him too. As night fell, laughter erupted from their kids, but it wasn't from Jake and Emma. "Did you hear that?" Mark asked sharply, exchanging a worried glance with Lisa. Shadows grew bolder, engulfing their campsite as strange symbols carved into trees began to flicker in the firelight. The friendly faces of families that had once shared this space were replaced with ghostly reminders of danger lingering just beneath the surface. A friendly park ranger appeared unexpectedly, his easy smile hiding something unsettling. His eyes seemed to watch, waiting. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As Mark turned to the kids, their laughter suddenly turned hollow, a shrill echo that faded into the night. Panic nestled in his throat as they explored deeper into the woods, unaware of the danger. Every step felt wrong. The forest darkened, changing the familiar sounds of night into a sinister symphony of rustling leaves and unseen footsteps. They stumbled upon a decrepit ranger cabin, shadowed under the weight of years and secrets. Inside, remnants of the past revealed a chilling history, a family who vanished without a trace, leaving nothing but unanswered questions. They felt a desperation clawing at them, as if the walls themselves whispered of regret. Regret for just being there. Then everything went wrong. Supplies began to disappear, first firewood, then the first aid kit. Mark and Lisa exchanged frantic looks, their fears spiraling. The once warm glow of the campfire flickered and sputtered, and dark shapes flickered at the edges of their vision. Hushed voices erupted into echoes that echoed wildly within their minds, churning unease into dread. Beneath the cover of shadows, as the night thickened, a realization crept forward. Were they being watched? The familiar faces of their children, now partially obscured by fear, felt distant, almost strangers. With doubt worming between them, shadows wrapped tighter, as the dark hunger of the woods threatened to consume them whole. Would they escape the malevolence lurking just beyond their firelight? Or had they already sealed their fate in the search for peace? A silence settled over the campsite, thick and stifling. Mark glanced around, unease prickling at the nape of his neck. Where had the laughter gone? He shone the flashlight into the tree line, its beam trembling over gnarled branches and tangled underbrush. "Kids!" he called. But only the wind answered, sighing through the leaves like a voice long forgotten. "Where are they?" Lisa's voice cracked, panic coloring her tone. She started moving toward the darkness beyond their campfire, her heart racing as dread licked at her insides. "Jake! Emma!" Something stirred behind the trees, a swift shadow darting away like a whisper through the night. Mark felt faint with dread. "Stay close, Lisa," he warned, clenching the flashlight as if it were a weapon. Together they stepped into the dark woods, pushing past thick branches that snagged at their clothes. Each crunch of twigs beneath their feet felt like an alarm bell ringing in the desolate night. "Jake!" Mark shouted again, his grip tightening around the light. No answer. A chill travelled down his spine, and he could have sworn the forest itself shifted around them, drawing them farther into its depths. "Mark, please," Lisa begged, horror etching her expression. "We shouldn't." But he pressed on, a knot forming in his stomach. Finally they reached a small clearing. It was bathed in sickly moonlight that pooled like spilled ink, revealing the tall, rugged silhouettes of other trees, their shapes grotesque in the pale light. The blood ran cold in Mark's veins when he saw it. The strange symbols they'd seen earlier now stood illuminated before them, carved into a large oak, swirling patterns that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. They looked familiar, horrifyingly familiar. "These were on the trees by our camp," he said, the words barely escaping. Then, from the corner of his eye, movement, a flash. He turned just in time to see a figure, small and fleeting, duck behind another tree. "Emma!" he yelled, his voice breaking. But all that awaited him was silence and the echo of his own fear. Something was wrong here, deeply wrong. A sudden shriek pierced the air. It was Jake, raw and terrified. Mark's heart lunged in his chest as they rushed toward the sound without thinking, fear propelling their legs. Bursting into another clearing, they halted, breathless. The faint glow from the campfire was visible through a sea of trees. But where were the kids? The realization clawed at his gut. They were far from safe. The shadows around them seemed sewn tighter, an invisible barrier trapping them. And then came the laughter, hollow, unnatural. It echoed around Mark and Lisa, reverberating through the very trees. It was like something dark was mocking them, reveling in their impending doom. "Run!" Mark screamed, adrenaline coursing through him. They sprinted back toward the campsite, stomachs twisted with dread. But as they dashed through the forest, closer views of the carvings caught his eye. A name was engraved in one of them. The Amers. Suddenly, the stories flooded back from Lisa's grandmother's tales, the lost campers, drawn like moths to a flame, never to return. What does this mean? Why had nobody prepared them for this? Before he could digest it, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, as if the woods themselves were coming alive, warning them to stay. "Mark!" Lisa's voice cut through his thoughts, pulling him back to reality. In the distance ahead, flickers of light beckoned. The campfire sputtered on the brink of extinguishing. Just beyond it, the shapes of their children appeared, eerily still. Their little faces stared blankly, eyes wide and unblinking. Every hair on Mark's body stood on end. "Kids!" he yelled, but no response came. As they ran towards their children, the air thickened with dread, and shadows lingered behind them, watching, waiting. And amidst this terror, one nagging thought clawed at his mind. What happened to the park ranger? Soon they would discover exactly how deep the secrets of Pine Creek ran. The flickering flames danced like restless spirits, illuminating their children's faces, but there was no warmth. "Jake, Emma, what's wrong?" Mark called again, desperation clawing at his throat. He forced himself to close the distance, heart pounding in sync with Lisa's frantic breaths beside him. As they came within reach, Mark's stomach churned. Jake's lips were pressed together, eyes wide and unblinking, a vacant stare seemingly lost in the hollow dusk. Emma stood frozen, her fingers twisted around a small branch that glowed faintly against the dark. "Are you two okay?" Lisa breathed dramatically, reaching for Emma. Just as she touched her daughter's shoulder, Emma flinched, stepping away as if burned. A wicked chill swept through the air, thick enough to choke on. "Mom, we couldn't find you." Jake finally snapped out of it, his voice trembling like leaves in a storm. "Something was outside, watching us. Don't you realize? We were calling for you." Mark's voice trembled with a mix of fear and urgency. The two kids slowly blinked as if awakening from a trance, but the fear remained, lodged like a splinter in the air between them. Emma raised her gaze, pointing into the woods beyond the firelight. It was in the trees," she whispered, voice quaking, "just like the drawings." "What drawings?" Mark exclaimed, mind racing. "The carvings. They spoke," she said, voice barely above a murmur. "The trees said we shouldn't go far, that we were chosen." A panic wrapped around Lisa's chest, squeezing tightly. "Chosen for what?" she shouted, but the words dropped into silence, echoing the darkness. Mark's heart hammered in his chest like a frantic drum. He turned towards the woods, a primal urge fighting with reason. "What did you see?" Before they could answer, a creak erupted, a sound so unnatural that it sent chills racing down their spines. The trees around them groaned in response, their branches twisting like skeletal hands, stretching toward the moonlight. "Run!" He grabbed the kids and yanked them closer, but before they could move, the shadows shifted and a figure stepped into the clearing. It was tall and hunched, its form dripping with what looked like shadows, trailing as it moved. Hollow eyes surveyed them, dark and deep as night. "Leave!" It hissed, its voice a rasp like the rustling of dead leaves. "This land is not for the living." Fear coursed through Mark like fire. "What do you want?" he shouted, voice trembling. "Sacrifice," the figure whispered, the word chilling the air around them. "The Amers always feast with the lost." Jake and Emma whimpered, backing away from the creature, pressing into their parents. Mark stood in front of them, a futile shield against the encroaching terror. Lisa's fingers dug into his arm, her grip like iron. Suddenly, a sharp crack rang out. The ground beneath them split ever so slightly, light flickering before it dimmed, the campfire struggling towards oblivion. The shadows intensified, stretching like serpents, wrapping around the trees, clawing toward the group. "Mom! Dad!" Jake screamed, panic surging through him. "Get away from them!" Mark yelled at the creature, taking a step forward, but with every step he took, the shadows twisted closer, clinging like wet fog. Without warning, the laughter erupted again, this time joined by cries from deeper within the trees, voices of children echoing and mocking, a choir of lost souls spilling forth into the night. "Run!" Mark cried, feeling the pull of darkness behind him. They stumbled back, tearing through the dense underbrush, desperation igniting every sinew. But with each stride, the sinister laughter chased them, intertwining with the chilling cries of the lost, beckoning them to return. As they broke through the trees to safety, breathless and sweating, hope pierced through their fear. The campsite beckoned them, but as the flames flickered like waning life, Mark could hear the whisper, "You can't escape." What lay ahead, hiding in the forest's depths? Would they find safety in the dawn, or would they join the stories of the Amers, forever bound to chaos? The air was heavy as they stumbled back to the clearing, the world around them feeling like it had shifted. The flickering campfire glowed dimly, as if it too were weary. Mark's insides felt twisted, clenching with anxiety, dread hanging thick like the mist creeping along the forest floor. "Are you both okay?" he gasped as he knelt before Jake and Emma, searching their frightened eyes for signs of normalcy, but there was nothing normal left. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "We heard them, the voices. They wanted us to stay," she whimpered. "Shut up, just shut up," Lisa snapped, glaring into the dark woods as if it would somehow quiet the cries. Her voice trembled just like her hands, hovering at her sides, indecisively twitching. Mark's gaze met Lisa's, a spark of their shared panic igniting. "Let's get the kids and leave. Now!" His tone brooked no argument. They turned away from the fire, but as they moved, a sudden rush of cold wind seemed to breathe momentum back into the darkness, pushing back against them. The reality of the forest pressed in, the trees looming closer, whispering secrets through rustling leaves. Shadows darted just beyond the firelight, teasing the edges of their vision. Mark felt exposed, acutely aware of how vulnerable they were in this foreign land. With every step away from the fire, the laughter exploded again, louder this time, a cruel symphony of despair rising from the woods. It was a host of mocking voices, a growing cacophony that echoed against the gnarled branches. "Join us! Join us!" they chanted, cycling like a twisted mantra. "Mark, we can't stay out here," Jake pleaded, his small voice trembling, full of fear and urgency. "Keep moving," Mark insisted, a surge of protectiveness washing over him as he gripped Jake's hand tighter, pulling him onward. Lisa held on to Emma, their urgency like an electric current, sparking fear into every step they took. They found the trail, half hidden by tall grass and ragged underbrush. Mark cursed under his breath, urging everyone to move. "Stay close," he barked, pumping adrenaline into their legs with every stride. But just as hope began to flicker in the distance, the earth trembled. The ground beneath them split again, this time deeper, more pronounced, hot breath seeming to rise from the chasm below. Mark stumbled, nearly falling into the dark void. Behind them, the creature was coming, its shadow stretching longer like a stalking predator. "Always feast, always watch," it hissed, voice echoing through the trees, snapping branches like the bones of lost souls. "Faster!" Mark shouted, pushing them to their limits. The laughter roared behind them, engulfing the air, mingling with the screams of children that pierced through the night. "Run!" he screamed when he realized more than just the creature pursued them. Suddenly, an explosion of sound erupted from the chasm, a piercing wail, as if the very land was crying out in agony. The ground shook violently, their feet struggling to find purchase. "Look out!" Lisa cried, pointing at the thick, ropey vines erupting from the ground like sentient tendrils. They twisted and turned, reaching for the fleeing family. Mark yanked Jake back. "Duck!" he shouted, and they all dropped as the grasping vines slithered over their heads like snakes, desperate and hungry. They kept crawling, inching closer to safety, but every sound fueled their nightmares. The laughter crescendoed into a terrifying roar, a lost chorus begging them to return. The clearing was no longer a sanctuary. It was becoming a trap. As they neared the edge of the clearing, feet pounding in chaos, Mark felt a pull from behind. Something, an unseen force, sensed their determination and surged closer. "We're almost there!" he cried, knowing deep inside he was misleading them. Then an otherworldly shriek reverberated through the trees, sending a shockwave of terror through Mark. The voices faltered, suddenly quiet. Lisa froze, glancing back with hope that perhaps they had passed the point of no return. But Mark could feel it, the electric pause deep in the air that signaled the worst was yet to come. "Run! Run!" Mark urged again, but a whisper wrapped around him, a soft coaxing luring him back. "Join us!" What more awaited them in the darkness? Was safety still an option, or had they unwittingly stepped into rituals far older than they could comprehend? They tore forward, heartbeats pounding against their ears like a relentless drum. The clearing loomed nearer, but the sinister whispers stirred in the icy air behind them, each word a frozen dagger. "Join us!" The call was hypnotic, a sickening lullaby that sent shivers racing down Mark's spine. "Keep going!" he yelled, his voice threatening to crack. He could feel the weight of Lisa's terror press against him, but he had to hold them together. He glanced behind, scanning for the shadow that had been stalking them. Nothing. Just darkness, stretching its fingers across the ground, waiting. As they broke through the dense undergrowth and reached the edge of the clearing, Mark turned back, his eyes wide. The woods had grown quiet, as if the world was holding its breath. But in that silence, a choking dread settled deep in his chest. What if it's just biding its time, he thought, his heart racing with the possible outcomes that loomed before them. "Mark, there!" Emma's voice cut through like a siren, and he turned to see a narrow path leading deeper into the woods, faintly illuminated by the ghostly glow of a sinking moon. "We have to go now!" With a hesitant gulp and a nod to Lisa and the children, Mark sprinted toward that sliver of hope. But just as they reached it, a cold wind swept through, stirring the leaves overhead, and the horrific voices surged back, louder than ever. "Stay! Stay with us!" Their tone shifted, an uneasy blend of coaxing and command. "Run!" Mark barked again, forcing his feet into action down the narrow, winding path. They dashed past gnarled trees, thick with ivy, the branches groaning as if alive, reaching for them. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision. Was it just their minds playing tricks? Or was something lurking, pacing them in the dark? But there wouldn't be time for doubts. The growling laughter evolved into something unrecognizable, an echo of agony mixed with unbridled joy, as if pain and terror danced hand in hand. "Keep moving!" Lisa urged, panic-stricken, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Emma and Jake were struggling to keep up. Adrenaline was surging, but the fear weighed them down. Mark turned to look at them, and saw Jake's small face was already pale with fatigue. "Just a bit further," he encouraged, though inside he was wrestling with his own terror. The woods were stealing their resolve, devouring the light, and all that surrounded them seemed eager to pull them back into the shadows. The path twisted and narrowed, branches clawing at their clothes. With each step, Mark felt the earth tremble beneath him, the ground more alive than he remembered. What will happen to us? He noticed his thoughts racing, and he clamped down on the panic, choking his throat. Suddenly Emma tripped, falling hard onto the jagged forest floor. "Emma!" Mark shouted, his voice cracking. He rushed back, instinctively reaching for her, but before he could pull her up, the roots beneath him writhed, snaking out like grasping hands, brushing against his ankles with an electric jolt. "Mark, help!" Emma cried, her eyes wide as they darted to the shadows, the monstrous laughter echoing again, filling that hollow space around them. The urgency propelled Mark forward, yanking her to her feet, while feeling the sharp tug from the roots pulling back, trying to reclaim their breath. "Run! Run!" He couldn't stop. With Lisa and Jake close behind, they thundered deeper into the suffocating darkness, but every moment felt like an eternity. The forest thickening with every step, alive with malice and ancient yearning. Mark skidded to a stop, breathless, looking around. "What if we're only going deeper into it?" he thought, panic now a roaring beast in his chest. Skyward, the trees blurred, branches twisted like skeletal fingers, seeming to reach out, threatening to ensnare them. The air became heavy, thick with foreboding whispers. "Where do we go?" Lisa's voice trembled, but Mark didn't answer. His heart was racing, and as he turned back toward the path they had come from, he heard a soft, melodic whisper caressing the nape of his neck. "Stay. Stay. It's safe here." Terror coursed through Mark, almost paralyzing him. The choice felt impossible, and then the laughter swelled, gripping him like ice. "Join us. Join us." The words slid like venom into his veins, paralyzing him in place. Could they escape the forest's grasp, or had they already lost their way? The truth was just out of reach, but something, somewhere was waiting for them, something older, something hungrier. "Mark, please, we need to move, now!" Lisa's words cut through the dark, a beacon of desperate hope. He turned back toward the others, determined to push forward. But what awaited them in tomorrow's light? Would dawn ever break, or was the forest their forever prison? The air around them shifted, thickening with dread, and Mark fought to stay centered, pushing past the whispering tendrils of darkness that wound around his mind. "We have to keep moving," he yelled, the urgency in his voice snapping the others back to the present. They stumbled forward, Mark leading the charge as they carved through the darkened path. The moon hung low, its light a mere ghost of safety. Each shadow seemed to pulse with malice. Behind them the laughter echoed, intertwining with the rustle of leaves, turning the quiet into a symphony of fear. "Faster!" Mark urged, glancing back. The forest appeared to move. Trees twisted and warped, their forms merging into dark figures swirling among the foliage. He swallowed hard. They were not alone. Emma and Jake struggled to keep pace, their breaths quickening with each frantic step. "Mom, I can't—" Jake's voice faltered, a tremor of desperation edging his words. "Just a little further, buddy," Lisa cried, but her voice betrayed the panic gnawing at her heart. Mark could see it in her eyes, the same palpable fear that was closing in on them, like the darkness itself. Suddenly, the narrow path diverged into two. One path forked left, the other right, both cloaked in shadows. For a moment it felt like time had paused. "Which way?" Lisa's voice was a barely audible whisper, swallowed by the rustling trees. Mark felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise as the voices deepened, amplifying in a cacophony of confusion. "Choose. Choose wisely." The whispers intertwined, pressing against his eardrums. He shivered, the air growing colder, a biting chill sinking into their bones. "Left!" he shouted unexpectedly, his instincts kicking in. Without waiting for agreement, he took the narrow path, and they followed, propelled by an invisible force that hammered relentlessly into their backs. The laughter returned, sharper now, morphing into a taunting chant. "You can't escape! You belong to us!" Each word reverberated through the trees, and Mark's breath hitched in his throat. Behind him, he sensed the shadows swirling with angry impatience, creeping closer with every pounding footstep. They broke into a clearing again, larger this time, the ground littered with shattered branches and the remnants of once majestic trees. Twisted roots jutted from the earth like skeletal fingers. Moonlight shone down, illuminating the center, and what Mark saw made his blood run cold. An ancient stone altar stood before them, worn and cracked, etched with grotesque symbols that pulsed with an eerie light. "What is this place?" Emma murmured, her wide eyes reflecting the dread that gripped them all. Suddenly the whispers grew deafening, swirling around them. "Join us! Join us!" They echoed in dissonance, clawing at Mark's mind, slipping into his thoughts, mingling with the horror before him. "Don't listen to them!" he shouted, shaking his head as if to clear the fog. "We have to move," but he could feel the gravitational pull of the altar as if it wanted to draw them in, to claim them for its own dark purpose. Lisa clutched Jake's hand tightly, their eyes darting nervously from the altar back to Mark. "What if this is it?" she asked, panic-stricken. "Not yet." Mark gritted his teeth, determined to fight whatever creature lurked in the shadows, weaving through trees like a predator. They needed to leave this place, and fast. With a swift decision he turned, stepping away from the altar, urging everyone back down the path. But even as they retreated, an unexpected weight pressed against him, a sensation that they were being watched by something ancient and terrible. What was awakening in the darkness? Then a rustle came from the depths of the trees, more pronounced than before. Mark froze, heart hammering. A figure stepped from the shadows, cloaked in mist, and something deep within him screamed. "Where do you think you're going?" it whispered, the voice unmistakably familiar, one they'd thought lost forever. "It can't be!" Mark's breath caught, recognizing the haunting whispers. The path loomed ahead, stretching out into the unknown, and as dread intertwined with hope, they faced the darkening woods together. What lay ahead was uncertain, but as the figure stepped forward, illuminated by the moon, Mark wondered if they had stumbled into a trap of their own making. Could they still find a way out, or had they crossed a line that sealed their fate forever? Mark's legs felt like lead as he stared into the encroaching shadows. The figure, Sharon, his sister, had been gone for years, lost on a camping trip that had turned into a nightmare. Now, here she stood, her eyes dark and hollow. "What are you doing here?" he uttered, his voice barely louder than a whisper, fighting the urge to step back. "Mark, you shouldn't have come back," she said with a chilling smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lisa's grip on Jake tightened as she sensed the danger radiating from the apparition. "That's not her!" Emma exclaimed, her voice breaking. "It can't be!" "Stay away from her!" Mark shouted, instinctively stepping in front of his family. It was not just Sharon's form that sent the chill down his spine. It was the aura of despair that seemed to ooze from her. The shadows deepened around the clearing, dense and ominous, and the whispers became sharper, more insistent. "Join us! Join us!" The trees seemed to lean in, as if straining to catch every word. Mark felt dizzy, as if the ground was shifting beneath him. "I can help you, Mark. We can be together again." Sharon drew closer, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Leave the others behind. They can't save you. Only I can." "No, you're not my sister anymore," Mark shouted, his voice bouncing off the trees, echoing into the night. Lisa knelt down with Jake, shielding him from the phantasm. "Mark, let's go! We don't have time for this!" But Mark couldn't move. The gaze from Sharon bore into him, pulling him into the memories he'd buried, camping trips, laughter, and then the weight of grief that followed. But what if she's right? The thought slipped into his mind like an unwelcome intruder. What if we can't escape? Suddenly the ground shuddered, and a shadowy shape writhed behind Sharon, coiling and uncoiling like smoke. It was darker than the night itself, a grotesque figure that loomed behind her, arms elongated and hands claw-like. The horror twisted inside Mark, a deep thrum of fear. "Mark!" Emma yelled, breaking through the spell, her voice feeble yet piercing. "We need to get out of here!" Sharon's smile flickered, replaced by a snarl that revealed sharpened teeth. "You're just like the others, weak!" Mark swallowed hard, the world contracting around him. He glanced back to Lisa and Jake. They were scared, true, but he could see a spark of determination in their eyes. He had to choose now. "Run!" he screamed, breaking free of the paralysis. With a surge of adrenaline, he sprinted back the way they had come, motioning for his family to follow. But as they threw themselves down the path, a banshee wail erupted behind them. "You can't escape!" Sharon's voice clawed at their hearts, echoing off the trees like a curse. Branches scratched at their faces as they ran, desperate to outrun the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Just as they neared the fork in the trail, they saw it, a shadowy mass filling one of the paths, writhing and shifting like a living entity. "Which way?" Lisa gasped, terror saturating her voice. "Right!" Mark yelled, but doubt slammed into him like a fist. The last time he had chosen, they had found an altar, a trap. The right path seemed to pulse with danger, a sickening promise of horror. But as hesitance gnawed at him, a guttural growl emerged from the left path, a promise that whatever lurked would soon catch up. Mark's heart raced as they stumbled into chaos. "No time!" he shouted, grabbing Lisa's arm, pulling her and Jake toward the left. "Just run! Trust me!" They plunged into the darkness, every step deeper into uncertainty. Behind them, the laughter twisted, echoing through the trees, remnants of hope crushed under the weight of despair. But just as they thought they outran the terror, the ground beneath them gave way, collapsing into an abyss of shadow. The world spun as they fell, and Mark's scream melded into the laughter, swallowed by the darkness. What awaited them at the bottom? Would they find liberation from the horrors above, or would a new, unspeakable terror rise to greet them? Falling felt like an eternity, the void spinning around them as they screamed, breathless and terrified. Shadows consumed them, swirling in a dance of darkness and despair. Then with a bone-rattling thud, they hit the ground. Mark groaned, vision blurred. The air was thick, suffocating. He pushed himself up, heart pounding in his chest. Dim lights seeped through the cracks of what appeared to be a cave, a macabre tomb. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like sharpened teeth, dripping cold water onto the cold, damp earth below. "Lisa!" he shouted, fear as sharp as ice slicing through his gut. He turned to find her, and relief flooded him when he saw her and Jake, both shaken but alive. Emma lay nearby, pale and shaken yet stirring. "What is this place?" Lisa asked, glancing around in horror. "We're trapped." Mark took a deep breath, forcing down panic. "We need to find a way out now." The oppressive darkness hung like a shroud. Mark stepped forward, his heart thudding with each step as he navigated through the shadows. They quickly gathered close, the faint light casting distorted shapes on the walls. "You think she's still after us?" Jake whimpered, clutching Lisa's hand tightly. Mark glanced around, feeling a presence in the darkness, a weight that made him feel vulnerable. No longer was it just Sharon's haunting visage. Something else lingered here, lurking just beyond their sight. Emma, still gathering herself, suddenly pointed deeper into the cave. "Look!" A faint glow flickered at the end of the passage. Hope ignited in Mark's chest. "That way!" They crept forward cautiously, the air seemingly thickening with every step. The glow intensified, revealing more of the cave as they moved. Mark's senses went on high alert. The whispers returned, swirling through the air like a chilling breeze. "Join us! Join us!" "Shut up! Just shut up!" Mark yelled, his voice echoing. And then he froze. The walls of the cave began to shift, pulsating as if alive, and the whispers grew louder, more frantic. He looked at his family, their faces knitted with fear. "Mark, what if it's a trap?" Emma said, her voice trembling. "We don't even know what's in there." "There's something back there," he breathed, "something wanting us, to join them." They moved cautiously toward the glow, but an otherworldly chill danced down Mark's spine. Was it really a way out, or a portal to despair? The growls that had once been behind him now surrounded them, coming from unseen entities hidden within the darkness. As they reached the flickering light, it revealed a grotesque altar surrounded by twisted roots, each one pulsating like a heart. The ground was littered with bones, human and animal, and the air was heavy with a smell of decay. From the shadowy depths emerged dark figures, each one grotesque, eyes glittering like lost stars. "You tread in our domain," one rasped, its voice a choked whisper that echoed through the cave like a tale long forgotten. Mark stepped back, terror engulfing him. "What do you want from us?" "Join us!" they hissed in unison, their forms writhing like wraiths. "We feast on the lost." A moment of paralyzing fear gripped him, and then Mark felt a surge. "No, you can't have us." He turned to his family, gripping Lisa's arm. "Run! Get back!" They galloped backward, adrenaline fueling their every movement away from the encroaching shadows, their footsteps echoing in the hollow chamber. But the figures followed, whispering curses and promises of darkness. Together they sprinted towards the fork between light and shadow, but the path began to twist. Each turn seemed to lead to a new terror, new horrors that clawed at their very souls. "Which way?" Lisa cried, panic surging. "Don't stop!" Mark shouted, feeling the cold breath of the shadows creeping closer. Yet the cave shifted again, and Mark felt his heart sink. Was there truly a way out, or only endless traps? A spiraling descent into madness. Just then, a flash of light erupted from behind them, illuminating the cave momentarily. He turned, his breath hitching. "There's no escape for the lost," the voice echoed, as the figures lunged forward with fury blazing in their hollow eyes. As the light dimmed, Mark realized they were not just shadows. They were remnants of lost souls, trapped and ravenous for company in their endless torment. "Mark!" Lisa screamed, her face twisted in fear as darkness closed in around them. In that heartbeat, Mark had to choose, fight or flight. But what if escaping the cave led them to worse horrors? Where would true salvation lie? The echoes of the cave growled, promising torment. Would they together forge there, or would the darkness consume them all? And then, from deeper within the cave, a familiar, haunting cry emerged. It was a voice Mark had long feared, whispering through the shadows, a betrayal wrapped in memories. "Join us!" Mark's heart raced, panic clawing at his throat. That voice, he knew it too well. It was the voice of his mother, lost in a tragic accident years ago. And now, here it was, echoing from the depths of hell itself. "Mark!" The voice beckoned, sweet yet sinister. "You've come to join me. We've waited so long." "Shut up," Mark snapped, gripping Lisa's arm tighter. "We have to go, now." Pushing through the chaos, they tore away from the altar, their feet pounding against the rough ground. The darkness around them grew thick and heavy, a suffocating embrace that blocked their escape. Shadows slithered around them like serpents, whispering their desperate pleas. "Stay with us. Stay forever." The chilling chorus surged, flooding Mark's mind with hazy images of his childhood, memories coated in warmth that now felt tainted. He could almost see her, smiling, beckoning him closer. No, he fought against it. His mother had died, or so he thought. The thought of her spirit lost in these shadows pushed him forward, desperate to escape the tether of regret and haunting longing. "Mark, look!" Emma cried, pointing at a jagged fissure in the wall, the only speck of light. A glimmer of hope stabbed through his dread. It had to be a way out. "Go! Now!" Mark urged them, leading the frantic charge toward the narrow opening, where the brightness beckoned like a distant star. They collided with the wall, squeezing through the gap. The stone gripped them, scraping skin and clothes, but it was nothing compared to the sound of laughter echoing around them, the twisted laughter of those lost. It sent shivers down Mark's spine. "Run!" he yelled, glancing back just as one figure lunged toward them, clawed hands reaching through the darkness. A howl erupted, hollow and full of rage, as they stumbled into the beam of light. They landed hard on the other side, gasping for breath on a cold, grassy surface. The cave behind them dimmed, but remnants of shadow flickered like fading embers in the corner of his sight. "Is it over?" Jake panted, glancing around, trembling. Mark's heart still raced, but as his breath caught up, he took in their surroundings. Forest loomed, thick and dark, branches twisting like claws against the grey sky. They had escaped the cave, but the woods were no less ominous. The unease crawled under his skin. "No, it's not over," he murmured, unease coiling in his gut. "They'll follow us. They always do." "Where do we go?" Lisa's voice quivered as they surveyed the tangled trees, shadows pooling at the base like ominous puddles of darkness. Mark considered their options. The cave had been a hellish maze, but now they were on the surface, scattered like the fallen leaves around them. Yet in the trees he felt another presence lurking, something watching. Low, malevolent whispers rustled through the branches, as if the forest itself held its breath. "They can't follow us here," Emma said, though her eyes darted, betraying her fear. "We can find a road, a way out." But deep within him, Mark sensed a truth he struggled to articulate. This forest, it's connected to the cave. This feeling, it's the same. A rustling interrupted them, a voice drifting through the air, chilling his core. "Join us. Forever." Mark's gaze shot to the trees, where dark figures began to shift among the shadows, blending seamlessly with the towering trunks. They were here. Shadows of his past, his mother's laughter intermingling with tortured souls, each claiming to have been lost just like him. "What do we do?" Jake whimpered, eyes wide with terror. "Stay together," Mark ordered, but inside doubt clawed at him. They had barely escaped one horror. What lay ahead in the deep forest? As the shadows moved closer, whispering promises of comfort and home, Mark braced himself. "We need to get to the next town. Come on!" They took off, sprinting into the heart of the woods, the whispers and shadows hot on their trail. Panic surged within him as branches clawed at their skin like icy fingers. They pushed deeper into the trees, but the oppressive weight of the forest, mixed with the chilling cries, grew, as if the land itself wanted to keep them. Just then, the ground beneath them trembled. A low growl reverberated through the forest, shaking the trees. It felt as if something ancient and hungry awakened beneath their feet, an unseen predator joining the hunt. "Mark!" Lisa screamed, pointing ahead. The path forked, but they could no longer tell where safety lay. The shadows converged, and in their eerie glow, the woods transformed into a twisted maze of nightmares. As they hesitated at the crossroads, a chilling thought pierced through Mark's mind. What if this was not just a journey through the forest? What if it was a descent into their own darkness, their sins and regrets personified? "Choose!" the voices urged, swirling around them. Before the choice could be made, another growl erupted, louder and more powerful than before, sending vibrations through their bones. A silhouette crashed through the trees. It was larger than life, more monstrous than any shadow they had faced. Fear clawed at Mark's throat as they stood paralyzed, trapped between the immense terror of the unknown paths and the horror closing in from behind. And then it leapt forward, bearing fangs that gleamed in the dim light, eyes filled with dark intent. What had they truly awoken from those cursed depths? Would this final confrontation seal their fate? Or would they discover a truth that would unleash a terror worse than shadows? With a spine-chilling growl reverberating through the dense forest, Mark and his family stood frozen, hearts racing as the massive shape emerged into view. A creature born of the darkness, rippling with shadows and malice. It lunged forward, an insatiable hunger glowing in its eyes, forcing the air from their lungs. "Run!" Mark shouted, instinct taking over. It was a primal scream that ignited a wildfire of fear within them. They bolted left, plunging deeper into the thickets. Behind them, heavy footsteps thundered, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Branches clawed at their clothes, snagging their arms as they pushed through, each tear a reminder of the peril closing in. Mark glanced back, and terror twisted in his gut. The creature closed the distance like a nightmare made flesh. "Where do we go?" Lisa gasped, her voice barely audible over the swift rustle of leaves. Mark felt the weight of her fear, the darkness creeping closer around them. "Just keep running," he urged fiercely, gripping Jake's hand tightly. Emma clung to her mother, face pale with terror, eyes darting as if the shadows held secrets too horrific to comprehend. But then, as they pushed through another thicket, the world fell away beneath them. They stumbled into an open glade, moonlight illuminating the chaos surrounding an ancient stone. In the center, it pulsed like the heart of the forest, a dark altar draped in decay, roots twisting and curling like the despair trapped within. "Mark, we can't stay here!" Lisa cried out, scanning for an escape, yet the whispers returned, sharper and more insistent. "Stay with us! Join us!" The voices swirled around them, promises of safety mingling with threats of doom. Mark felt the ground shudder, fear tightening into a coil in his chest. "Stay by me!" he shouted to his family, stepping closer to the altar as if compelled by forces they could not see. But the shadows rushed in, swirling wickedly, dragging at their feet, and soon those spectres emerged, their hollow eyes glinting with hunger. Mark's resolve tightened. "We have to fight. We can't let them take us." He gripped his family's hands, pulling them closer as shadows reached and curled, trying to ensnare them. "No!" Emma shouted, her voice cutting through the disarray. "It's a trap. I saw it. The altar wants us." In that frantic moment, realization washed over Mark, sharp and clear like ice water. It was a ritual, a crime to bind souls to the land. But what if they could break the cycle? "I need you all to trust me," he said, his voice steady, despite the terror filling his veins. "If we push against it, if we fight back together, maybe we can break the hold." The whispers turned into a chaotic murmur, growing louder as the forest screamed to keep them. Mark inhaled deeply, feeling the pulse of his heart against the onslaught of fear. "Together, on 3, he declared, drawing strength from those he loved. 1, 2, 3! They surged forward, hands clasped, unleashing a surge of collective will against the altar and the shadows. The bond of their love cast a flicker of light in the suffocating darkness, a beacon of hope that pushed against the encroaching void. To their amazement, as they focused on the light between them, the shadows recoiled, shrinking back as if stung. With a primal roar, the creature lunged, but it was met by an unyielding force, a barrier forged by their unity. "Keep going! Don't stop!" Mark commanded, feeling the energy rise. A blinding glow erupted from the altar, illuminating the night, chasing away the ghastly shadows that threatened to consume them. And then a shattering crack echoed through the forest, a splitting sound that rang like a bell, one that echoed through the very core of the earth itself. "Hold on!" Mark yelled as the ground rumbled beneath their feet. The trees began to sway violently, shadows peeling back like layers of darkness stripped away. In that moment, time slowed, and Mark saw faces of the lost emerge from the shadows, drifting and intertwining with the light, a mourning yet joyous mixture of souls freed. As the light engulfed them, a deafening roar erupted, love overpowering fear, hope eclipsing despair. Together they broke through, bursting past the barriers that held them, hurtling towards brighter skies. Then silence enveloped them as they tumbled into stillness, landing in the soft undergrowth bordered by trees swaying gently, freed at last. The moon hung high and bright, casting away the darkness that had pursued them. Mark lifted himself slowly, dazed yet alive. He looked over his family. Lisa clung to Jake and Emma, all alive, pulse quickening, hearts beating as one beneath the quiet moonlight. "There's just the trees," Lisa breathed, glancing around, disbelief etched on her face. "Did we do it?" Emma whispered, hope blossoming in her wide eyes. Mark felt tears sting his own as he pulled them all close. "We did. Together." They stood together, catching their breath, aware that the woods that had haunted them were now just trees, unforgiving and ancient yet quieter somehow, shadows dissipating away into the night. But they knew they must leave this place behind. They turned back towards the path they had come, ready to reclaim their lives with echoes of laughter that would drown out the memories of fear. "Let's go home," Mark urged, determination igniting within him. No shadows could claim them now. Together they'd face whatever awaited, a family carved from light. As they stepped into the dawn, toward freedom, the forest whispered one last time. But this time it was not calling them back. It whispered in defeat, telling tales of lost souls as the sun emerged, warming their spirits in the rising light. And with this, they left, forging their way forward into a brighter future, no longer bound by darkness, but united in the strength of love, forever free. Now, friends, if you're here, it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss out on the next spine-tingling stories we have in store. Smash that like button now. Each click feeds the algorithm and keeps our community growing. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. We want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to join our adventure. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel, so let's show the world what we're made of.